He had always been a quiet boy, the kind who listened more than he spoke. In his home, life moved fast. People rushed in and out, talking about bills, work, and family matters. But never about art or dreams or anything soft and gentle. He grew used to the routine of noise without meaning. Yet somewhere deep inside him, he carried a feeling he could never explain. A kind of heaviness mixed with curiosity, as if something inside him wanted to wake up, but did not know how. His school days passed in the same kind of silence. He did not have many friends, mostly because he did not know what to say or how to say it. When other kids talked loudly about sports or games, he listened quietly from the side. Teachers liked him because he was calm and respectful, but even they could see that something about him felt distant. Like he was always thinking about something far away. But the truth was that he wasn't thinking about anything at all. He was simply waiting for life to make sense. One afternoon, after a long day of classes and homework, he took the longer route home, a habit he had formed without knowing why. It was on that street where he first heard the sound that would change everything for him. At first, he thought it was just noise from a busy road. But as he walked closer to the small market area, he noticed a man standing near a corner, with a violin resting softly under his chin. The tune floated through the air like warm wind, light and gentle, yet full of feeling. The boy had never heard anything like it before. He stopped walking without realizing it. The man played with closed eyes, moving the bow across the strings with slow, careful strokes. The melody was sweet and clear, and though the boy didn't know the name of the piece, something inside him stirred. He felt an unexpected calm wash over him, filling the space where confusion and heaviness used to stay. The sound felt like a story, one that did not need words to be understood. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone inside himself. He stood there for several minutes, listening as the violinist moved from one melody to another. People walked around them, some dropping a few coins into the open case on the ground, others passing without even slowing down. But the boy didn't move. He felt as if the world around him had paused, allowing him to breathe in a way he never had before. When the man finished the piece, the boy felt a strange sadness, almost like waking from a peaceful dream too soon. He wanted the music to continue. He wanted to stay in that moment longer. But he was shy, and he did not know how to express what he felt. So he simply turned around and walked home, trying to hold on to the feeling as long as he could. That night, as he lay in bed, the melody kept playing in his mind. He didn't know the name of it, but he knew it belonged to a world he had never explored. A world where sound could carry emotion, and emotion could speak without words. He wondered if the man would be there again the next day, the next afternoon. He took the same long route home, pretending to himself that it was just a habit. But deep down, he knew he was looking for the man with the violin. When he reached the market corner, his heart lifted. The man was there, bow already gliding across the strings. This time the tune was a little faster, brighter, full of joy. The boy recognized none of it, yet it felt strangely familiar, like something he knew from another life. He stood again in the same place, watching quietly. The violinist noticed him this time and smiled gently, as if he understood the boy's curiosity. But he did not speak, and neither did the boy. It was an unspoken connection, built only through sound. Day after day, the boy returned to that same spot after school. Sometimes the tunes were soft and peaceful. Sometimes they were strong and bold. The boy didn't know it yet, but he was listening to Mozart, to Beethoven. Two melodies shaped by the lives of people who had felt deeply and turned their feelings into music. As days turned into weeks, the boy felt something in himself start to shift. He began waking up with a little spark in his chest, wondering what the next melody would sound like. He found himself smiling during the walk to the market corner, and for the first time, his silence stopped feeling like loneliness. It felt like a quiet space, waiting to be filled with music. One day, after listening for almost an hour, he gathered the courage to ask a question. As the man packed up his violin, the boy stepped closer. "What was the first song you played today?" he asked softly. The man looked up, surprised but pleased. "That was Mozart," he said gently. "A simple melody, but full of life. Mozart. The name stayed in the boy's mind like a secret treasure. He repeated it to himself as he walked home. He didn't know much about music, but he knew one thing for certain. Whatever Mozart created had touched something inside him. He went home and searched online for Mozart's music. When he pressed play on the first piece he found, the same feeling washed over him again. The peace, the warmth, the sense of being understood without needing words. He listened for hours, exploring melody after melody, losing track of time. Over the next few days, he discovered Beethoven too. Beethoven's music felt different, stronger, deeper, full of emotion that seemed to reach out and shake him awake. While Mozart's melodies were bright and gentle, Beethoven's felt powerful. It's almost like they were telling him that it was okay to feel big emotions. The boy had always kept everything inside, but when he listened to Beethoven, he felt safe enough to feel something more. He started reading small bits of information about the composers. He learned how Beethoven faced hardship but still created incredible music. He learned how Mozart's melodies were full of joy and natural talent. He learned how classical music had changed lives for hundreds of years. But what mattered most was how it was changing his. The more he listened, the more he wanted to understand how these sounds were made. He didn't have a piano at home, and his family could not afford one. But he found an old keyboard that a neighbor had thrown out. The keys were yellow, some stuck when pressed, and the speakers made a soft buzz, but to him, it felt like the doorway to a new world. At night, while everyone slept, he sat quietly in the corner of his room, pressing one key after another. At first it was just noise, but slowly he tried to find notes that sounded like the melodies he had heard outside. He made countless mistakes, but he didn't feel frustrated. For the first time, he enjoyed the process of learning. He remembered how the violinist moved gently, how his fingers seemed to flow like water. So the boy tried to make his fingers move the same way. He practiced for hours, even though he knew only a few notes. Every sound he made was a small step toward something bigger, something he still didn't fully understand. One afternoon at school, a teacher announced a small creative competition. Students could perform anything: dance, art, music, poetry. The boy didn't think much of it at first. He wasn't the kind to stand on stage. But that night, as he touched the keys of the old keyboard, he thought about the melodies outside, about Mozart and Beethoven, about how they made him feel alive. A quiet idea formed in his mind. Maybe he could try playing something simple. For several nights, he practiced the same short tune. It was not perfect, but it carried the feeling he wanted to share. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't want pressure or judgment. He just wanted to try. On the day of the competition, his hands shook as he stepped onto the small stage. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest. The audience was small, just classmates and a few teachers, but it felt like 1,000 eyes watching him. For a moment he wanted to run away, but then he remembered the first melody he ever heard. He remembered how it calmed him. He closed his eyes and placed his fingers on the keyboard. When he played the first note, something warm and steady rose inside him. The music flowed gently. Not perfect, but full of honesty. When he finished, there was silence for a moment. Then his classmates clapped softly. His teacher gave him an approving nod. He didn't win first place, but he won second, and to him, that felt like the greatest achievement of his life. Walking home that day, he felt lighter than ever. He realized something important. Music wasn't just sound. It was a place where he belonged. A place where silence wasn't empty. A place where emotions could breathe, and it all started with that simple melody on a street corner, played by a man who didn't even know the boy's name. He had found the thing that warmed his heart, and he knew now that he would follow it wherever it led him. He woke the next morning with a feeling he couldn't quite describe. It was not excitement exactly, nor was it worry. It was something in between, like a soft push from inside telling him to keep going. After the small school competition, he felt a new sense of confidence, something he had never experienced before. He didn't talk about it at home because no one there really asked about such things, but he carried the moment with him quietly, as if it were a small flame he needed to protect. Every day after school, he still walked to the same corner to listen to the violinist. Sometimes the man wasn't there, and on those days, the boy felt a strange emptiness. But when the violinist was present, the boy listened with even more attention than before. He wasn't just enjoying the music now, he was studying it. He watched how the man's fingers moved, how his body followed the rhythm, how even small changes in pressure created different sounds. The boy didn't know much about music techniques, but he learned through observation. At home, the old keyboard became his closest companion. Even though some of the keys sank too deeply and others stuck stubbornly, he didn't mind. He spent hours trying to recreate the melodies he heard outside. Some nights he got frustrated, hitting the same note dozens of times because it didn't sound right. But he didn't quit. Something inside him had awakened, and even though he didn't fully understand it, he knew he wanted to keep going. One evening, while searching online for beginner piano lessons, he found a short video explaining basic hand positions and simple exercises. The video wasn't fancy. It was quiet and slow, which suited him perfectly. He followed along with the instructions, repeating the same movement over and over. It felt strange at first, but soon his hands began to relax. His fingers still stumbled often, but they were learning. It was the first time he realized that music wasn't just about talent, it was also about patience. He started practicing every night. Sometimes he practiced until his hands felt tired. Sometimes he practiced even when he felt sad or stressed, because the music gave him a place to put his emotions. When school felt overwhelming, he sat at the keyboard. When he couldn't understand his own thoughts, he let the notes speak for him. Slowly, music became more than a hobby. It became a safe space. As weeks passed, his classmates noticed small changes in him. He still didn't talk much, but he no longer looked lost. He had a quiet focus about him, like someone who had found something meaningful. Some classmates were curious and asked him what he did after school, but he never gave a detailed answer. He simply said he enjoyed music. He wasn't hiding it, he just didn't know how to share something that felt so personal one day. During lunch break, a teacher who had watched his performance approached him. She asked if he would like to join the school's small music club. It wasn't a formal club, just a few students who met once a week to practice different instruments. At first, he hesitated. He wasn't sure if he was good enough to play around others. But the teacher encouraged him gently, so he agreed to attend one meeting. When he entered the music room for the first time, he felt nervous. The room smelled of old wood and books. Several instruments were scattered around: guitars, leaning on chairs, a small drum near the wall, and a piano that looked much nicer than his old keyboard at home. A few students sat in a circle, tuning their instruments. They greeted him warmly, and even though he wasn't used to such attention, he felt welcomed. When it was his turn to play, he sat at the piano and took a deep breath. His hands trembled lightly, but when he pressed the first key, the sound that came out was smoother than anything he had played on his broken keyboard. The difference almost startled him. He played a simple tune he had taught himself, soft, steady, and full of the feeling he carried inside. The room fell silent as he played, and when he finished, the other students clapped softly. In that moment, he realized something important. Music wasn't meant to be kept only inside. It was something that could be shared, something that could connect people without needing many words. After that first meeting, he attended the club every week. The teacher guided him on posture and rhythm, showing him small techniques that made his playing smoother. The other students shared their own music with him, and he listened with interest. They played everything from simple folk tunes to more modern melodies, and each piece taught him something new. He never felt judged, never felt out of place. For the first time, he felt like he belonged to a group. Outside the club, he continued to explore more classical music. He discovered Chopin, whose piano pieces felt deeply emotional. The first time he listened to one of Chopin's nocturnes, he felt like the music was speaking directly to his heart. Chopin's melodies were gentle, yet filled with longing, like whispers of memories he didn't know he had. They made him think about his own quiet moments, his childhood, and the feelings he often kept hidden. He wanted to play Chopin too. He knew it was too difficult for his current level, but he tried anyway. He practiced the opening notes slowly, repeating them again and again. Some days the notes came out uneven and messy, but other days they sounded almost right. The small improvements encouraged him, and he promised himself that one day he would play a full Chopin piece properly at school. He started receiving small opportunities to perform. Once, the music club was asked to play a short piece for a school event. The teacher chose him to play a gentle melody, while other students accompanied with light percussion. He felt nervous again, but he remembered how music had helped him through difficult feelings. When he played, he focused on the sound, letting it guide him. The audience listened quietly, and the applause at the end warmed him from the inside. At home, however, life remained the same. His family noticed he spent a lot of time with the keyboard, but they didn't ask many questions. They cared about him, but they were busy with work and responsibilities. They didn't fully understand his growing passion for music, but they didn't stop him either. He didn't mind. Music was his personal journey, something he cherished even if others didn't see its depth. One weekend, he decided to return to the market corner early in the morning. He hoped to see the violinist again, not only because of the music, but also because the man had unknowingly changed his life. When he reached the corner, the place was quieter than usual. Only a few shops were opening, and the street felt calm. Then, as he walked closer, he saw the familiar figure setting up his violin. The boy stood nearby, and the man recognized him immediately. He smiled and began to play a warm, soothing melody. This time, the boy listened differently. He didn't just hear the music, he understood the emotion behind it. When the man finished, the boy finally gathered the courage to speak. "Your music helped me," he said softly. "It made me want to learn." The man looked at him with kind eyes. "Music has a way of finding people who need it," he said. "Keep learning. You never know where it might take you." The boy didn't know how to respond, but he nodded with gratitude. That moment stayed in his heart for a long time. It felt like a blessing, a gentle push forward. Over the next months, he practiced harder than ever. He began learning to read basic sheet music, slowly understanding how notes worked together to form melodies. It was confusing at first, but he didn't give up. He watched countless tutorials, read simple guides, and asked his music club teacher questions whenever he got stuck. Little by little, he improved. His fingers moved more smoothly. His timing grew steadier. His confidence strengthened. He wasn't a master by any means, but he was progressing something he never imagined possible when he first heard the violinist on the street. As he played quietly at home, he realized something that gave him both surprise and pride. He was no longer just imitating melodies. He was beginning to create small pieces of his own. Simple patterns, soft sequences of notes, little emotional stories hidden inside sound. They weren't perfect, but they were his. That small discovery felt like a door opening inside him. He understood now that music wasn't only about following what others had created. It could also be a way to express his own feelings, his own journey. And so, without telling anyone, he began writing a small melody of his own, just a few lines. A gentle tune that reminded him of those early days when he first discovered the warmth of classical music. He didn't know it yet, but this simple beginning would shape the next steps of his life. The passion that started with a street violinist's melody was now becoming his own story. One note at a time, as he grew older, his world slowly expanded, not in big dramatic ways, but through small moments that settled into his life like gentle notes in a long melody. Music had become more than something he listened to or practiced. It had become a companion, a quiet guide that shaped the way he saw the world. He didn't fully realize how deeply it had changed him until one afternoon, when something unexpected happened. He was walking home from school, the same route he always took. The market area was crowded as usual, filled with voices, footsteps, and the distant hum of traffic. He wasn't expecting anything special that day. But as he passed the corner where the violinist usually played, he noticed a group of younger children gathered around. Some were laughing, others talking loudly. But one boy in particular stood a bit farther away, looking almost the way he himself once did, quiet, lost, unsure. For a moment, he saw himself in that younger boy. The memory of his first encounter with classical music came back to him so clearly that it almost felt like yesterday. The calmness, warmth, the sense of being understood without words. He wondered if the younger boy felt something similar, or if he was still waiting for that spark. The violinist was not there that day. Instead, a street performer with a small speaker was playing fast, modern tunes. The children seemed entertained for a while, but the boy who stood aside didn't look interested. He just watched with empty eyes, as if he was trying to feel something but couldn't. Without thinking too much, the older boy stepped closer. "Do you like music?" he asked gently. The younger boy shrugged. "I don't know." He didn't push further. Instead, he took his phone out and scrolled to one of his favorite classical pieces, a soft, calming melody by Mozart. He held the phone lightly and said, "Here, try listening to this." The younger boy took the earbud hesitantly, placing it gently in his ear. The music began, slow and peaceful. The older boy watched silently as the younger boy's expression changed, the slight widening of the eyes, the stillness in his posture, the way his breathing softened. It reminded him so much of himself that a small smile formed without him realizing it. After a minute, the younger boy took the earbud out. "It feels different," he said quietly. Different. It was the same word he once used in his own mind when he first heard classical music. And in that moment, he understood something important. Music had found him when he needed it most. Now it was finding someone else through him. This small moment stayed with him for days. It made him wonder just how powerful music truly was. It wasn't just about notes or rhythm. It was about connection, emotion, the unseen bridges it created between people. Back home, he began exploring even more of Beethoven's work, especially the pieces filled with strength and emotion. Beethoven had a way of turning struggle into sound, turning quiet pain into powerful music. On nights when he felt overwhelmed by schoolwork, responsibilities, or simply the pressure of growing up, Beethoven's melodies felt like a hand on his shoulder, steadying and grounding him. Then there was Chopin, whose music felt like soft whispers in the night. Chopin's pieces didn't tell him to be strong. They told him it was okay to be gentle, to feel deeply, to let his emotions breathe. He loved the contrast between Beethoven's power and Chopin's softness. Each composer touched a different part of him, helping him understand himself in ways he never could with words. He spent more time practicing on the school piano now. The music room became his sanctuary, especially in the early mornings when the hallways were still quiet. He liked arriving before anyone else, placing his hand softly on the cool keys, letting the silence wrap around him. Sometimes he played simple warm-up exercises. Other times he attempted pieces far beyond his skill level, just to feel the emotion behind the notes. One morning, as he practiced slowly, the music club teacher entered the room. She watched him for a moment before speaking. "You've improved," she said kindly. He looked up, a little surprised. "I'm still learning." "Everyone is always still learning," she replied. "But you're learning with heart. That's what matters." Her words gave him a quiet sense of pride. He didn't need applause or attention. Simple encouragement felt enough. One day, the teacher handed him a small booklet. "These are simple classical pieces," she explained. "Try them when you have time. They're a good way to build technique." He accepted the booklet with gratitude. Inside were short melodies from various composers, including one by Chopin that looked both beautiful and intimidating. He promised himself he would learn it, even if it took weeks. At home, the old keyboard continued to serve him faithfully. Even though it buzzed loudly and some keys stuck unpredictably, he practiced from the booklet, focusing on the Chopin piece. The opening notes were delicate, requiring control and sensitivity. His first attempts were uneven and shaky, but he kept going. Each night, he played slowly, listening carefully to the way each note blended with the next. Over time, his fingers learned what his mind couldn't fully explain. They started to move with a small sense of grace, finding familiarity in the melody. The more he practiced, the more he understood the emotional depth behind the piece. Chopin wasn't just writing music. He was writing feelings. One weekend, the community center near his home announced they were looking for volunteers to help with after-school activities for younger children. At first, he didn't think much of it. But then he remembered the younger boy from the market corner, and something inside him nudged gently. He visited the center and spoke to the coordinator, who welcomed him warmly. They needed help with simple activities, storytelling, homework support, and sometimes music. When he mentioned that he played piano, the coordinator's face brightened. "We'd love for you to share music with the kids," she said. "They don't get much exposure to things like that." His first day at the center was filled with nervous excitement. The children were energetic and curious, running around with bright eyes and loud voices. He wasn't sure how to start. He wasn't a teacher, and he didn't know how to capture their attention. But he remembered how music had spoken to him without fancy explanations, so he played a short clip of Mozart on the small speaker the center provided. At first, the children continued talking, but slowly, some began to quiet down. A few sat on the floor. Others asked questions. "What is this? Why does it sound like that? Is someone really playing this?" He answered gently, keeping things simple. "This is classical music," he explained. "It tells stories through sound." The children listened with wide eyes. One girl said the melody made her feel calm. Another child said it reminded him of the sky. Their reactions surprised him. He didn't expect them to connect with the music so quickly. Over the next few weeks, he began visiting the center regularly. He brought short melodies to share, soft pieces from Mozart, emotional fragments from Chopin, and motivating passages from Beethoven. The children responded with enthusiasm. Some asked for music that made them feel brave. Others wanted something that made them feel happy. He realized that even though they were young, they could feel the deeper emotions hidden within the notes. He also taught them small exercises on a simple keyboard the center had. It was even older than his own, but the children didn't mind. They enjoyed touching the keys, experimenting with sounds, and trying to follow his instructions. He didn't push them to be perfect. He simply encouraged them to feel the music and enjoy the experience. One afternoon, a child who rarely spoke approached him quietly. She tugged at his shirt and said, "Can you play that soft song again? The one that made my heart feel warm." He knew immediately which one she meant, Chopin. He played it gently, and the girl sat nearby, hugging her knees as she listened. Her silence wasn't empty. It was peaceful. In moments like that, he realized that music could do more than entertain. It could heal. It could comfort. It could remind people that they were not alone. As time went on, he found himself looking forward to his visits to the center. The children's laughter, their curiosity, their emotional openness, all of it, filled him with a sense of purpose. He no longer felt like the quiet boy who didn't understand life. He felt like someone who could give something meaningful. One evening, as he walked home, he thought about how far he had come. Music had not just changed his life, it had helped him change the lives of others. He had discovered a world filled with beauty, emotion, and connection. He looked at the sky, which was turning a soft shade of blue and orange, and felt grateful. He knew there was still so much to learn, so much to experience. But for the first time, he wasn't waiting for life to make sense. Music had already given him a direction, and deep inside, he felt ready to follow wherever it led him next. The days that followed felt calmer for him, yet they carried a quiet tension underneath. He woke up early each morning, opened the small window of his room, and let the cold breeze of the late season move across his face. It helped him think. It helped him breathe. Music had always been his comfort, but after the moments he shared with the elderly lady in the community hall, it had become something deeper, almost like a guide. Pulling him forward, he spent most mornings listening to classical pieces on an old speaker. Sometimes the sound cracked, but he didn't mind. Beethoven's slow movements felt like warm hands placed gently on his shoulders, steadying him. Mozart's bright rhythms made the room feel less empty, as if sunlight was filling the corners. And Chopin's soft emotional lines touched a part of him he rarely showed to others. Still, wasn't sure why life felt so heavy beneath all of this. He wasn't facing anything dramatic or tragic, but he often carried a weight he couldn't explain. He didn't talk about it. He didn't complain. He just lived quietly, trying to do his best. One afternoon, while walking back from the grocery shop, he passed a small music store he hadn't noticed before. The front window had faded posters of concerts from many years ago. Inside, He could see he never thought that music would someday lead him to a room full of children who were waiting for someone to believe in them. Yet life has a way of surprising people, and that is what happened when he stepped into the small community center on a warm afternoon. The place was simple and old, the walls that needed fresh paint, and chairs that made soft creaking sounds whenever someone sat down. But none of that mattered. What mattered were the young faces looking up at him, each with a story of their own, each hoping for something new to hold on to. He had come only to volunteer, nothing more. A friend had told him that the center needed someone to help with small tasks, maybe even teach something if he wanted to. He didn't plan to teach music at first. It felt too big, too personal. Music was something he usually kept close to his heart, almost like a private language he had learned over years of listening to Beethoven, Mozart, and Chopin. But when he saw the children sitting quietly, some shy, some restless, he felt something warm inside him. Maybe sharing music would not be such a bad idea after all at first. He played a few simple tunes on an old digital piano the center kept in storage. The piano was out of tune and missing one key, but the sound was enough to fill the room with something gentle. The children's reactions were mixed. Some sat with wide eyes, listening carefully. Others giggled softly, unsure how to feel. A few whispered to each other, but even they quieted down when he started playing a soft piece by Mozart. What surprised him most was how quickly the children settled. There was no need for strict rules or raised voices. The music did the work. The melody flowed through the air like a warm breeze, and the room felt calmer, kinder. He watched the children breathe more slowly, their shoulders relaxing. It felt like the music wrapped itself around them, making them feel safe. He asked them what they felt after he finished playing. At first, no one wanted to speak. Silence filled the room until one small boy lifted his hand. In a shy voice, the child said the music made him feel lighter. Another girl said she felt warm inside. Someone else said it made him think of a happy memory he didn't know he had. Their words touched him deeply. These children were opening up, not through long conversations, but through simple feelings. He realized something then. Music was not only sound, it was a bridge, one that connected people without needing perfect words. He started coming regularly. Every week he played different pieces. Sometimes it was a slow, emotional melody by Chopin that felt like a soft whisper. Other times he chose a bold, strong piece from Beethoven that filled the room with energy and strength. He noticed that each piece brought out something different in the children. One afternoon, he challenged them to draw how the music made them feel. The results surprised him. One child drew a bright yellow sun, saying Mozart made her feel like she was standing in warm sunlight. Another drew a small boat on calm water, saying Chopin made him feel peaceful, like he was floating. Someone else drew tall mountains with strong lines, explaining that Beethoven made him feel brave. He had never seen music expressed this way, and it made him feel proud. These children were finding their own meanings in the melodies, shaping emotions they didn't know how to talk about. He realized they were not just listening, they were discovering themselves. Soon, a few children asked if they could learn to play something. The request surprised him, but also made him smile. He taught them simple notes, the basics of rhythm, and how to keep their fingers light on the keys. Some picked it up quickly, others struggled, but none of them gave up. When someone made a mistake, he would gently show them again. There was no pressure, no competition. Only learning, patience, and joy. As weeks turned into months, he could see changes in the children. Those who used to be shy began raising their hands. Those who were restless could now sit still, listening with interest. Even children who rarely smiled started showing small, shy grins whenever they mastered a new note or played a short melody correctly. Music had become more than a lesson. It was their safe place. One afternoon, while the children practiced, he noticed a little girl sitting in the corner, watching quietly. She had come to the center only recently and had not spoken much to anyone. Her eyes followed every movement of the keyboard, and her fingers moved in the air as if she were pretending to play. He walked over and asked softly if she wanted to try. She hesitated at first, looking unsure, but after a moment, she nodded. He guided her hands to the keys and showed her a very simple tune. Her small fingers trembled, but when she pressed the keys, the sound that came out made her eyes widen with surprise. She played the tune again, this time with a tiny smile. It was a smile he would remember for a long time. The center slowly filled with life. The staff noticed the difference in the children and often thanked him. But he did not do it for praise. He did it because he understood what music had once done for him. During his own childhood, music had been the soft light in dark moments, the quiet friend that stayed even when everything else felt heavy. Now he was passing that gift to others. He started bringing small speakers to play recordings when the piano was not enough. Sometimes he played Beethoven during art time. Other times he played Chopin when the children worked on quiet activities. He noticed how certain melodies helped them focus, express themselves, and even comfort each other. One day, the director of the center approached him with an idea. She suggested organizing a small music performance for the parents. Nothing big, just a simple gathering where the children could show what they had learned. He liked the idea, but felt nervous. He didn't want the children to feel pressure or fear. But when he asked them about it, they reacted with excitement. They wanted to share the music they had grown to love. From that day, they practiced with new energy. Some children prepared short piano pieces. Others wanted to recite what the music made them feel. A few wanted to perform together in small groups. It wasn't about perfection. It was about expression. During practice sessions, he felt a mix of emotions. He was proud, excited, and even a little scared. What if the children became too nervous? What if they forgot their pieces? But every time he saw their eager faces, those worries faded. The children were not performing to impress anyone. They were performing because they had something to share. As the day of the performance approached, the energy in the center grew. The children practiced with determination. Parents helped decorate the small hall with colorful paper and simple lights. Even the old piano was polished, and someone fixed the broken key. He watched everything unfold quietly. This was more than he had expected when he first walked into the center months ago. Back then, he only wanted to help in some small way. Now he was standing in the middle of something beautiful, something that music had created, the night before the performance. He sat alone at the piano. He played a short Chopin piece, not for practice, but to calm his thoughts. The notes echoed gently around the empty room, reminding him of his journey from a quiet boy discovering music by accident to an adult sharing that same gift with others. He felt grateful. Music had shaped him, guided him, and now allowed him to guide others. He didn't know what the future would hold, but he knew one thing: music would always be part of it. The performance day was just around the corner, and though he felt nervous, he was also ready. Ready to celebrate the children, ready to celebrate the power of music, and ready to take the next step in a journey he never planned, but felt deeply thankful for. The morning of the performance arrived quietly. As if the world understood the importance of the day and chose not to rush it, he woke earlier than usual, unable to fall back asleep no matter how much he tried. His mind kept replaying the children's laughter during rehearsals, their shy smiles when they finally mastered a difficult note, and the soft confidence they had been building week after week. He sat on the edge of his bed for a long moment, letting the calm morning light rest on his face. He felt a mix of nervousness and warmth in his chest. This was not his performance, but he felt responsible for making sure the day went well for the children. They had worked hard. They deserved to feel proud. After getting ready, he made his way to the community center. It was still early, and most of the children had not arrived yet. The hall felt different today, brighter, more alive. Parents had decorated the place with simple ribbons and colorful paper cutouts. The old piano stood clean and polished at the front of the room, looking almost new. He walked around the hall slowly, checking the chairs, adjusting them so everyone could see clearly. He tested the sound system, even though it wasn't perfect, placed the sheet music neatly on a small table beside the piano. As he did all of this, he felt something building inside him, a sense of purpose. Months ago, he had simply wanted to help. Now he realized he had become part of something meaningful. Soon, the children began to arrive. Some came running through the door with excitement, their eyes bright and full of energy. Others walked in quietly, looking nervous but trying their best to hide it. A few clung to their parents, whispering that they felt scared. He greeted each of them with a warm smile, telling them softly that everything would be okay. He reminded them of what he had said many times during practice: "You don't have to be perfect. Just share what you feel." Those words seemed to comfort them. Once everyone had arrived, the small hall filled with chatter, footsteps, and the soft hum of people settling into their seats. Parents whispered to their children, helping them fix their clothes or adjust their hair. Staff members moved around, making sure everything was running smoothly. He stood near the piano, watching the scene unfold. It felt surreal that the music he loved so deeply had brought all these people together. He felt honored to be part of their day. When the performance finally began, the hall grew quiet. The director welcomed everyone with a short, warm speech and thanked him for his efforts. He felt shy hearing his name mentioned, but he nodded politely. Then the first child walked up to the piano. Her hands trembled slightly as she sat down. She took a slow breath, looked at him for reassurance, and he nodded gently. When she played the first note, the hall filled with a soft melody. It wasn't perfect, one note was slightly late, but it didn't matter. The emotion in her playing made people smile. When she finished, the room filled with applause. Her face lit up with pride as she returned to her seat. Next, a group of children stood in front of the audience to share drawings they had made during one of the earlier sessions. Each described what the music had made them feel. One talked about warmth, another about courage, and another about peace. Their simple words touched the listeners deeply. As the afternoon went on, more children performed. Some played short melodies. Others recited little reflections on the music they had learned. One child even hummed a gentle tune he had remembered from one of the sessions. Each performance was unique, genuine, filled with emotion. He watched every moment closely, cheering silently for each child. He felt proud in a way he had never felt before, not because they were perfect, but because they were sharing pieces of their hearts. About halfway through the program, the little girl who used to sit quietly in the corner walked nervously toward the piano. She had only recently begun learning to play, and her progress had surprised him. He could see her fear as she sat down, her small shoulders tense, her fingers stiff. He crouched beside her and whispered softly, "Just breathe. You know this tune? Play it the way you feel it." She nodded a little and looked forward. The moment her fingers touched the keys, something beautiful happened. The melody she played was simple, but it had a warmth that filled the hall like sunlight. It was gentle, steady, and full of sincerity. When she finished, the audience applauded louder than before. Her smile grew slowly, shy but full of joy. He felt tears forming in his eyes but blinked them away. After all, the children finished performing. The director asked him to come forward. He hesitated, unsure of what to say, but the children cheered for him in their own small ways, some clapping eagerly. Some waving at him. He stood in front of the audience, feeling nervous in a way he hadn't expected. But as he looked at the children sitting proudly with their families, he felt courage rise within him. He spoke simply. From the heart, he talked about how music had always been a companion in his life, how it helped him through difficult days and quiet moments. He explained how sharing music with the children had brought him joy he never expected. He thanked the parents for trusting him, the staff for supporting him, and the children for giving him the chance to be part of their journey. His words were not fancy or perfect. They were honest, and that was enough. When he finished, the room filled with warm applause. After the performance, families gathered around the children, hugging them and taking pictures. The children talked excitedly about how they felt on stage. Some even asked him when the next class would be. As the hall slowly emptied, he helped put away chairs and gather stray sheets of paper. The room felt quieter now, still full of a soft warmth left behind by the day's events. The director thanked him once again before leaving. "You've done something special here," she said. "The children will remember this for a long time." He didn't know what to say except thank you. When everyone had gone home, he sat at the piano alone. He placed his fingers on the keys and played a few gentle notes. The sound echoed softly around the empty hall, He closed his eyes, letting the melody wrap around him. He thought about the journey he had taken from discovering classical music in lonely moments too, sharing it with children who needed something quiet and beautiful in their lives. He realized something important. Music had not only warmed his heart, had connected him to others in ways he never imagined. It had given him purpose, community, and a sense of belonging. And as the last note faded into the quiet room, he knew this was not the end of the story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. He stood up, turned off the lights, and stepped outside. The evening air felt calm. The world seemed softer, brighter. He walked home with a peaceful heart, knowing that the music he loved so deeply would continue guiding him maybe even guiding others as life moved forward. Note by gentle note,